Imagine waking up to this headline: the United States default on its debts. The world's largest economy, the backbone of the global financial system, has stopped paying its bills. What happens next? Chaos, panic, and perhaps the end of financial world order as we know it. But how did we get here? What does it mean for America, for the world, and for you? Let's break it all down. So, first, let's define what it means for the US to stop paying its debts. When we talk about US debt, we are referring to money the government has borrowed through treasury bonds, bills, and notes. Investors, both domestic and foreign, buy these securities because they are considered the safest investments in the world. Why? Because the US government has never, quote unquote, never defaulted on its obligations, at least not yet. But if Congress fails to raise the debt ceiling, or if political gridlock prevents new funding, the US might not be able to pay interest or repay the principals on its debts. That's what we call a default. And trust me, it's not just a bad thing, it's a disastrous thing. So what happens immediately after the US stops paying its debts? First, the government grinds to a halt. Agencies close their doors, millions of federal employees go unpaid. Programs like Social Security, Medicare, and military salaries stop. You think government shutdowns are bad now? Well, a default might make those look like a minor inconveniences. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Financial markets would collapse. Investors rely on the US treasuries as the safest assets in the world, like the foundation of a house. If that foundation crumbles, the entire financial system starts to fall apart. Stock market would nosedive. Banks holding US debts would face massive losses, and interest rates, well, will they increase or decrease? Answer that in comment section. Now let's bring this closer to home. If the government defaults, borrowing costs for everyone shoots up. Mortgage rates might double, making homes unaffordable. Credit card interest rate could spike, meaning your monthly payment goes through the roofs. Even car loans and student loans would become more expensive. And that's not all. Businesses that rely on federal funding, like defense contractors, healthcare providers, and infrastructure projects, would face massive layoffs. Unemployment would rise, consumer spending would plummet, and the economy would spiral into a deep recession or even a depression. And let's not forget the inflation. If the government tries to print money to cover its obligation, we risk hyperinflation. Now, think $100 for a loaf of bread. That's the kind of chaos we are talking about. Now let's zoom out and talk about the global impact. The US dollar is the world's reserve currency. That means most international trade, from oil to electronics, it's done in dollars. If America defaults, trust in dollar collapses. Countries like China, Japan, and Saudi Arabia, who holds trillions in US debts, would face massive losses. And it's not just governments. Businesses around the world rely on US treasuries as safe investments. If those become worthless, it would trigger a global financial crisis. Stock market across Europe, Asia, and America would crash. Global banks holding US assets would struggle to stay afloat. Even small countries would feel the shockwaves as trade slows down and foreign investments dry up. But the impact wouldn't just be financial, it would be geopolitical. America's default would mark the beginning of the end for its dominance in the global order. Countries like China, Russia, and India, already pushing for alternative to the dollar, would gain ground. We might see a faster transition to a multi-currency world, with Chinese yuan, the euro, or even cryptocurrencies taking center stage. Organizations like BRICS could form their own financial systems to bypass the dollar entirely. Make no mistake, the US defaulting would fundamentally change how world works. It could usher in a new era where American influence diminishes and other powers step up to fill the vacuum. Now, you might be wondering, is this scenario really possible? Could America, with all its resources, actually stop paying its debts? The short answer is, well, it depends. However, the US has tools to avoid defaults, like raising the debt ceilings, cutting spending, or even minting a $1 trillion coin. Yes, that's a real idea. But the bigger issue is political. If Congress can't agree on a solution due to partition gridlock, we could get dangerously close to this nightmare scenario. History shows us that brinkmanship isn't new. In 2011, the US came within hours of defaulting. Even though we avoided it, the crisis caused market to panic and the US credit ratings was downgraded for the first time ever. Other countries have defaulted too. For example, Argentina in 2001, Russia in 1998, Greece during 2010s. In each case, the consequences were severe: hyperinflation, mass unemployment, and political unrest. But here's the difference. America's economy is the largest in the world. Its debt is foundation of the global financial system. The US default wouldn't just be another financial crisis, it would be a global catastrophe. So what can be done to avoid this doomsday scenario? For one, lawmakers need to take debt ceiling seriously. Playing politics with America's financial future is reckless. Second, the US needs a long-term plan to address its growing debts, whether that's through smarter spending, higher taxes, or both. And for the rest of us, well, stay informed, diversify your investments, and understand that while this scenario is unlikely, quote unquote, it's not impossible. Being prepared is always better than being caught off guard. The US defaulting on its debts would be one of the most disruptive events in modern history. It's a reminder of how interconnected we all are, how one nation's actions can ripple across the globe. So what do you think? Could this really happen? And if it did, how would it change the world as we know it? Let me know in comments below. And if you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the forces shaping our world.